Module 2. Bronfenbrenner, the social context for development. Outline of the module. Who is Yuri Bronfenbrenner? Yuri Bronfenbrenner, born in Moscow, Russia, but moved with his family to US when he was 6. He was a PhD holder in psychology from the University of Michigan since 1942. Bronfenbrenner once worked as a clinical psychologist in U.S. Army and a professor at the University of Michigan and at Cornell. Besides, he also helped to found the Head Start Early Childhood program. What is context? Context is the total situation that surrounds and interacts with an individual's thoughts, feelings, and actions to shape development and learning. Context can be classified into either internal or external context. Internal context refers to physical or psychological effects such as hormone levels that manipulate our body growth and affect our emotions during human development. External context refers to the physical effect that caused by the environment, events and people surrounding us. So we now focus on the external contextual effects that influence the development of an individual. Yuri Bronfenbrenner's biological model of development that proposed by Bronfenbrenner in 1989 recognized that the physical and social contexts that an individual develops are ecosystem. Bronfenbrenner believed that the external contextual effects interact with and affect each other. A child grows up in a family that instill the knowledge and skills by the caregivers. The family sets up with parents, siblings and relatives. The people live near to your house are neighbors or friends. When the child enters the school, he or she interacts with peers, teachers and schools. The schools follow the policies and programs of the government to educate the students. There exists indirect interaction between the child and the policies and stakeholders of the government. The relationships in all systems are reciprocal as the interaction flow occurs in both directions. For instance, in microsystem, a child influences the parent and vice versa, whereas in mesosystem, all the elements of the microsystem influences among each other. In general, Bronfenbrenner's theory describes the nested social and cultural contexts that shape development. Every person develops within a microsystem, inside a mesosystem, embedded in an exosystem, all of which are a part of the macrosystem of the culture. The first context for a child development is the mother's womb. The health condition of an expectant mother during pregnancy is very vital for her baby. The environment of the mother should be stress-free and safe from the teratogens that are harmful to the embryo. Therefore, family acts as a starting point to cultivate the development of an individual. There are two types of family structures. First, it is blended families. Child may live with the stepbrothers or stepsisters under the same roof through the remarriage of the parent. The best example to explain the blended families is Cinderella from the Disney story. She has two stepsisters after the remarriage of her father with her new stepmother. Extended families refer to a child lives in the same household or at least in daily contact with different family members such as grandparents and other relatives, a part of parents and siblings. Next, we look at the parenting styles that described by Diana Blumberg Baumrind based on her findings in 1991. Baumrind, born in 1927 in New York. She possesses Ph.D. in psychology at the University of California. She once worked as a staff psychologist at Carwell Memorial Hospital in Berkeley and a developmental psychologist at the Institute of Human Development, University of California. Based on her findings through observation of 100 preschool children and interviews with their parents, Baumrind and other researchers identified 4 parenting styles with 2 aspects such as parents, warmth and control. Authoritative parents are warm and restrict to their children. They possess high expectation and demands for maturity, but in meanwhile they exhibit strong support and love to their children. Parents are responsive and ready to listen to their children and provide valuable advice and guidance to their children. Authoritative parenting style is the best parenting style out of the 4. Next, it's the authoritarian parenting style. Authoritarian parents seem cold to their children. They are strict in controlling their children for the expectation on them to be mature. Children are required to obey the rules that set by their parents. Children cannot say no to their parents when they refuse to follow their parents' instruction. Although the parents are strict, but they are actually love their children very much without openly affectionate. Permissive parents are warm but not so restrict to their children. The parents let their children to explore any new things by their own. Yet, the parents will be there whenever the children need them for support. Most of the time, the children can develop high self-esteem to explore new things and challenge themselves in risky tasks. Lastly, it's the rejecting or neglecting or an involved parenting style. Rejecting parents are totally neglecting their children and seem not care at all to control their children. Sometimes, rejecting parents have high potential to become the abusive parents if the parents are once the victims of child abuse. In a nutshell, authoritative, authoritarian, and permissive parents show their passion at their children in different ways of parenting. Findings show that children of authoritative parents are prone to perform well in school and able to interact with others. Children of authoritarian parents are more likely to have trouble to interact with the peers as they are used to be restricted by their parents in having their way. Excessive permissive and neglecting in parenting styles are disadvantageous to children development as they have high tendency to involve in social issues. Attachment. What is attachment? According to Woolfolk, 2012, attachment is the emotional bond that forms between people. As mentioned earlier, the first attachment is between infant and the caregivers when the child born. There are 4 attachment styles with 1 secure and 3 insecure attachments. In short, infants with secure attached to the caregivers trust the caregivers and are more confident to explore new things as the caregivers act as their safe base when they need support and guidance from the caregivers. In contrast, infants with insecure attached to the caregivers can be angry, rejecting and fearful with their caregivers. This is because the ways that the parents' response to the infants are opposite that of secure parents who are very responsive and concerned about the needs of infants. Studies reveal that the quality of attachment between children and caregivers may affect the interactions of children with teachers and peers when they enter educational settings. Secure attached children able to interact and cooperate with teachers and peers when participating in class activities. They show well academic performance than that of insecure attached children. When a child enters an educational setting, he or she will start to interact with others beside of family members. The child may feel excited or anxious at the first day of school. Most of the time, children will gradually adapt themselves in new environment by interacting with others, especially peers. Peer groups can be identified as cliques and crowds. Cliques are the smaller peer groups that consists of approximately 3 to 12 members in each clique. The interaction within the clique is more likely to occur in everyday life when they meet with each other. The members of clique tend to hang out together and share the common and interested topics among themselves frequently. Crowds are less intimate groups as members may or may not interact with one another. Due to the large size of peer groups, the members are not necessary to spend time together to hang out with. For example, when a child would like to share his problem with peers, the first choice of the listeners will be his cliques rather than crowds. Peer groups are formed as the members share similar thoughts, interests and behaviors. Therefore, it is not surprising that there will be the group rules that follow by the crowds or cliques, which is denoted as peer culture. Peer culture is powerful as the members do not want to be left out by other members. Therefore, the members are mostly obey the rules, although sometimes they personally feel that they want to abolish the custom of the group rules when it is inconvenient for them. Peer culture can be positive or negative, depends on the motives of the groups. Sometimes, the members of some crowds motivate among each other to perform well in academic areas and sports activities that may lead them to become role models and popular among peers. The popularity of a child can be observed from the attitude and behavior of the child and how others treat the child. To answer the question on why is this child liked by others, the child becomes popular as the child shows well academic performance and is well-rounded person in social interaction. The child is willing to receive and respect to the disagreement of others with an open heart. The child is able to figure out alternatives to solve problem without easily getting frustration. In contrast, There are the cases when a child becomes popular even though the child is aggressive. This is because other children may think that the ways the aggressive child behaves are very attractive and cool in the sense of challenging the adult authority. Rejected children can be identified into two subgroups such as aggressive and withdrawn. A rejected aggressive child show high rates of conflict and extreme hyperactivity to interact with others. Others feel fear at them as their moods vary rapidly when they are angry in a conflict or misunderstanding. A rejected withdrawn child are timid and always be bullied by others. The child always feel awkward to involve in social interactions as they are afraid of attack by others. The controversial children possess both positive and negative attitude and behavior that can vary over time. Sometimes they can be troublesome in certain situations but then become friendly with others in another situation. They have friends and satisfy with their peer relationships. Strikingly, neglected children are not as worse as we think. They are said to be neglected by others as they are perceived as shy children and being invisible by others. However, most neglected children are well adjusted and still socially competent than other children. In fact, they do not seem to be lonely or unhappy about their peer relationships. As a teacher, he or she should concern about the personal and social development of students. It is crucial for an educator to instill the good qualities in the classroom context as the educator is the second party that spends lots of time to interact with children every weekday. Sometimes, the small efforts from teachers to tackle the problems of students in social interactions may lead to turning points of students to better lives in future. Who knows? Being a good listener to students and providing sufficient moral support and advice are very valuable to them who are facing to the problems of interpersonal or social interactions with others. Teachers should be aware of the emotional states of students as it would affect the performance in school. There are the cases that teachers neglect or overlook the students who behave differently and rejected by peers. In fact, some teachers personally think that those left out students are troublemakers in classroom, but the teachers refuse to listen to them in order to adjust their social qualities. As a good teacher, you should establish positive relationships with your students and motivate them to achieve their goals in future. Teachers should not only focus on the academic achievement of the students, but ready to be patient and aware of the students' issues and personal problems. Both academic and personal caring are equivalent important as students with healthy interpersonal development are more likely to acquire knowledge and skills effectively. Before I end the lesson, let's look at some social issues occur in our society. The first one is child abuse. Teachers and schools should be aware of child abuse that may happen around us. Notice the signs and indicators of abuse on particular students who show different behaviors than before and report the case to the principal and police as well. Appoint the doctors and psychologists to do a body and psychological checkup of abused children. The effort of society to report a child abuse case can save a life as there are almost 5 children die in abuse every day. Besides, the addiction of ICT gadgets among parents and children becomes the trend in the global stage. It is undeniable that ICT devices connect the people all over the world and ease the process of information transmission within short period. However, parents and children nowadays are spending more time with technology and less face-to-face interaction with each other. Most of the time, when you are outing and plan to have a dinner in a restaurant, you can notice that most of the parents and children hold their smartphones and sit with each other but no conversation among them. Ironically, parents and children text with each other even though the parents sit next to their children. Same situation happens among peers. Therefore, it is the time for us to think about the problems and look for the solution to minimize the negative effects of these social issues.